Greetings, my friends. Welcome back. We're going to stay in Ireland for this story. This time is going to be a story about a battle. But not a battle with armies. This is going to be a battle between two poets. A fight with verse and words of wisdom. This story is called The Dialogue of the Two Sages. We begin our story, my friends, at Emain in Ulster. The king at this time, Concobar MacNessa. And he had a master poet, Adna, who died suddenly. And in his place was another wise and powerful poet called Ferhercne, and he was given his position. Now, to give a bit of context, the Irish poets were known as fili. But if you were a master poet, a poet employed by your king of your province, you were given the title of Ollamh, a grand and lofty position on par with any druid. And it seemed that Ferhercne was a perfect fit to take over Adna. But Adna had a son called Neve, and technically, Neve should have been the next Ollamh of Ulster. But alas, Neve was away, completing his bardic training in Scotland. But he learned of his father's death, not by a messenger, not by a bird carrying a piece of paper, but through the sound of the sea waves crashing along the shore, along the rocky cliffs of Scotland. He could hear the words speaking to him that his father had passed away, and that it is your time to take the Ollamh seat as you should. So Neve finished his training very quickly and took a coracle back home to Ireland. And he went for Emain to take the Ollamh seat for himself. So as he entered Emain and entered Concobar's hall, he encountered a man called Bricrew. Now, Bricrew, he was a very sly, cunning man. He's an Irish trickster. Very fitting how we have covered 3 trickster stories so far, but Bricrew will have his own story, as he does in Irish mythology. But regardless, Bricrew saw that Neve was Adna's son, and he decided to play a little game, a little trick on him, as he is prone to do. He can't help himself, old Bricrew. So, he posed himself as one of Concobar's officials and said that he was going to bestow the Ollamhship to Neve. But alas, he said that because Neve was still young in face, he would not be very suitable for the position. But Neve had a way around this. For he plucked a piece of grass, a little blade of grass in his hand, and uttering a word of power, he placed the blade of grass onto his chin. As it seeped into his skin, and out from his cheeks and his chin grew a luxurious beard. Something that Bricrew could not deny. And this was all part of Bricrew's plan. Neve then strode towards the grand seat of the Ollamh, and sitting upon that seat was the cloak of 3 colours. Now this was the badge of office for the Ollamh, the cloak of 3 colours. The middle part of the cloak a wide array of colourful feathers. The lower part of it was white bronze in colour, and the upper part was made of the brightest gold. Neve donned the cloak and then took the seat at last. But Bricru went away and got Ferherkne and said to him that there was an upstart sitting in his seat and he should do something about it. Now, Ferherkne was angry, as you can imagine, so he stormed into Concobar's hall to confront this young upstart who thinks he could take his position like this. But he stopped and looked. When he saw Neve sitting in the chair, he was perplexed. It was like a vision of perfection, like Neve was made to be in that seat, to wear that cloak. Obviously, he felt a bit embarrassed, storming in, being so angry at this perfect visage of bardic inspiration. So he approached Neve in kindness and did say, you know, you're in my seat. I am the Ollamh of Ulster. What are you doing in my seat, wearing my cloak? And Neve thought to himself, that Bricru, he's definitely put something up. But he calmly said that he knew that this was a jest for Bricru, and said that truly, I had no idea that this was going to happen, but I am technically by right the next Ollamh of Ulster. The two disagreed, but instead of coming to blows with each other physically, they thought that they would have a test. A battle of wills, a battle of verse to claim the Ollamhship. And then began the dialogue. A question, O child of education. Where do you come from? To which Neve replied, not hard to answer. From a wise man's heel, from a confluence of wisdoms, from a perfection of goodness, from brightness of sunrise, from poetry's hazels, from splendor's circuits, from that state where truth's worth is measured, from the measure where truth is realized, from that reality where lies are vanquished, from where all colors are seen, from where all art is reborn. And you, my elder, where do you come from? To which Ferherkne replied, not hard to answer. From the width of the pillars of the age, from the fill of the rivers of Leinster, from the length of the hall of the wife of Necton, from the reach of the arm of the wife of Nuada, from the extent of the country of the sun, from the height of the mansions of the moon, from the stretch of a babe's umbilical cord. A question, O youth of instruction, what is your name? To which Neve replied, not hard to answer. Minuscule and muckle I am, dazzling and highly hard. Entitle me fire's flame, name me fire of word, or noise of knowingness, or fountain of riches, or sword of canticles, or ardent verity of genius. And you, my elder, what is your name? To which Ferherkne replied, not hard to answer. Of seers most sure, I am chief revealer of that which is uttered and that which is asked. Inquiry of the curious, weft of deafness, creel of verse am I, and abundance of the sea. O question, O young man of learning, what art do you practice? To which Neve replied, not hard to answer. I bring blush to face, a spirit to flesh. I practice fear's erasure, and tumescence of impudence. Meters nurture, honours venture, and wisdom's wooing. I shape beauty to human mouths, give wings to insight. I make naked the word. In small space I have foregathered the cattle of cognizance, the stream of science, the totality of teachings, the captivation of kings, and the legacy of legend. And you, my elder, what art do you practice? To which Verherkne replied, not hard to answer. Sifting up streams for the gold of wisdom, lulling of hearts from the fires of anger, captaining seas of words, excellency of skill, putting feathers in kings' pillars. I have acquired a thirst that would drain the boy. I am a maker of shields and wounds, a slicer of pure air, an architect of thought. I can say much with few words. I can sing the long miles of great heroes' lives. I am a jeweler of the heart. A question, O young exalted man, what are your tasks? To which Neve replied, not hard to answer. To cross life, to the mountain of youth, to rise to the hunting of the age, to follow kings to the tomb, to pass between the wick and the flame, between the sword and the terror. And you, my elder, what are your tasks? To which Verherkne replied, not hard to answer. To scale from honour to honour, to obtain the conversation of the wise, to suckle at the breast of poetry, to wade the wide rivers of the world, to make music for the ferocious demon upon the slope of death. A question, O wise man of young face, what path have you come? To which Neve replied, not hard to answer. By the way of a king's beard, by way of the forest, upon the back of the ploughman's ox, upon a nourishment of acorns, upon the barley and the milk of the mother of song, upon one grain of wheat, by the way of the most narrow of river crossing, upon my own 2 legs. And you, my elder, what path have you come? To which Verherkne replied, not hard to answer. By the way of the whip, of the many-skilled look, by way of the sweet breasts of women, by way of the letters cut on the staff, by way of the spear head, by the way of the silver dress, upon a chariot without a wheel, upon a wheel without a chariot, upon the 3 things unknown to Mac-Ind Og, son of the young. And a question to you, young man of manly understanding, whose son are you? To which Neve replied, not hard to answer. I am the son of poetry, poetry son of looking, looking son of thought, thought son of learning, learning son of curiosity, Curiosity, son of seeking. Seeking, son of great wisdom. Great wisdom, son of great common sense. Great common sense, son of true understanding. True understanding, son of insight. Insight, son of the three gods of poetry. And you, my elder, whose son are you? To which Ferherkne replied, not hard to answer. Son of the fatherless man, buried in the womb of his mother, blessed after his death, married to his own death. My father is the first cry of the babe and the last cry of the dying. Ilf was his name. A question, Neve, what news do you bring? And Neve replied, not hard to answer. I bring good news. Seas of fish, fullness of lakes, glad countenance of glades, wood at work, fruit boughs bending, barley bearded, bees swarming, a joyful land, peaceful peace, merry weather, soldiers paid wages, king sitting in sunlight, war distant, art present, men boasting, women sewing, thorn trees spiking, caskets of gold, a bravery for every boast, enough thread for every stitch, every good thing I sing forever. There's none greater than the great Creator, the same who revealed at first the 9 hazels of poetry, who made also the rank of Ollamh. For in the world I have 3 real fathers. My father in flesh, Adna, who is dead. My father in art, Joche Horsemouth, who lives in Scotland. And my father in years, Ferherkne. And then Neve rose from the Ollamh seat, took off the cloak of 3 colours and handed it to Ferherkne, saying, may you be forever blessed, Ollamh of Ulster. But instead, Ferherkne said this, great poet, a wise youth, son of Adna, may you get glory from men and gods, and may you be the finest treasure in Emyn Macha, Ollamh of Ulster. And that is the story of the dialogue of the 2 sages. A wonderful story with wonderful poetry. That was the first story I ever learned that had poetry embedded in the story. I could only imagine that for the bards of old, to learn such a story with that amount of poetry must have taken some skill of memorization, especially to perform it to others in the courts of kings and rulers. And Bricrew is also an interesting character. He is mentioned a couple of times in the Ulster cycle, and normally it has to do with something that Cuchulainn has done. Much like Thor and Loki from Norse mythology, Cuchulainn and Bricrew are sometimes in the myths paired up with each other for the most randomest and most exciting adventures. I look forward to seeing tales of Bricrew whenever I encounter them on my travels. Thank you, my friends, for listening, and I hope you have enjoyed this story and the poetry. If you wish for me to tell more poetry, then let me know in the comments. I would be happy to hear any suggestions. Any poetry you can find, and I will also do my best, if you are wanting this, for any other Celtic-inspired poetry that I can find. Now to you I say safe travels, my friends, and I hope to see you again very soon. Take care.